Welcome to my shop, my tools, my rules. In today's video, I'm going to share with you my solution for a stowable router table that occupies roughly about 2 square feet when stored away in the corner. As I'm a sometimes woodworker, I wanted a solution that didn't occupy a lot of floor space when I wasn't using it. That's also why I didn't go down the router table on wheels solutions, as they still occupy quite a bit of floor space even when pushed off into the corner. And the benchtop router tables, well, they didn't seem really large enough for the kind of projects I had in mind. So with that said, let's stop our lollygagging and get right to it. Most of the time I spent on this project was actually researching what others were doing and reading product reviews online to determine what components I wanted to select. After days of reading reviews and watching videos, it was time to cut bait and fish. Let's start with the easy stuff first. I already had a Craftsman router, but I wanted a dedicated router for the router lift, as I wanted to be able to set up the router table quickly and didn't want to have to spend a lot of time mounting the router and the router lift, switching back and forth. I will leave a link to my 5-minute woodshop workshop setup video if you want to check that out. I wanted a somewhat beefy router, as I wanted to be able to use large bits, which also meant it needed to be variable speed. And since it was dedicated to the router lift, I wasn't worried about weight. I went with a DeWalt DW618. It's a 2.25 horsepower variable speed router and kind of met my requirements. But there's lots of routers out there. So pick what works for you. Just make sure it works with the lift that you select as well, because there is some compatibility there you need to be aware of. Despite dedicating into the router lift, I still went with the kit for the router, as it came with the plunge and it was only about $30 more versus $110 later if I decided to get it and needed it for some reason, if it was even available. So for that reason, it was kind of an insurance policy for me. I went ahead and got the kit for $30 extra and got the plunge router. The router table and fence. This is a build or buy decision. There's lots of YouTube videos on how to build both. For me, I had a lot of projects behind this, as this was one of the first things I was building for the shop. I needed it to build some of the other projects I had in mind. So I was interested in saving time, and so I just went the buy route. The router lift. This is also a build or buy decision for some, but for me, I wasn't even going to go down that path. It was clearly going to be a buy decision. With the build or buy decision out of the way, the next step was selecting the components. I evaluated router lifts and table from Jessam, Craig, Incra, and others. Read lots of product reviews online, lots of customer reviews before finally deciding on what I was going to select. There's lots of options out there, so do your homework, pick what works best for you. I went with Jessam for all three. Perhaps not the most economical, but you do get what you pay for, and I've been super happy with everything I've gotten from them. I'm not sponsored by them or anyone else, and it's just based on my own experience. I haven't purchased the other products. For all I know, they could be just as good as the Jessam products, but I'm happy with what I got. I've been using this router table for about a year and pushing it through its paces, and I'm really happy with the component selections I made. The precision of the lift is really awesome. You're able to zero in on cuts. It won't move. You'll get the same result over and over again as long as it's locked. It's easy to raise up and down to change the bits out, as you can kind of see here. I'll do some B-roll on that later. But you unlock it. You have the crank here. Right. I'll just change one bit here real quick, show you. Let's drop in a 1/4-inch roundover. You can see I can get to the lock here on the top pretty easily. I don't know if you can catch that. Tighten it down. Lower it. Drop in the zero clearance plates. Again, I went with the kit and got the zero clearance plates. It's not like I'm not going to use them. There you go. Whoops. And there you have it. With the component selection complete, the next step was to determine how to build the frame and the base. For the base, I already knew I was going to use the DeWalt sawhorses because I already had a few of those. They're adjustable, so I can adjust the height. I needed to make sure that when I leaned the table up against the wall, that I, one, could protect the edge of the fence here, and I could also make sure that I wasn't bearing the weight of the table itself, because I was afraid it would warp sitting leaned against the wall over time. So it actually doesn't bear any of the weight. The frame here bears all the weight. There's actually aluminum brackets underneath that actually mount the table to the frame, and they're very stiff and they're not going to bend either. So far, so good. I haven't had any problem with this thing being warped. I just checked it before the video. Flat as the day I bought it. One of the things that's important to note is the table here is slightly above the table here. So if I have work pieces, they clear the table. Let me show you. So you can see as I have a work piece here, it basically clears the top of the table. The frame sits in the back notch of the sawhorses and frames the front, so it doesn't move front to back and doesn't move side to side. There's some rubber on the top of the sawhorses, kind of keeps it from slipping. There's a little bit of a play there, so when I'm putting this on, it's not too precise. It's easy to lay on the top, and it's not rocket science to kind of line it up perfectly, but it fits perfectly, so that's what matters. The phenolic tabletop has fixed places where the screws go. You can't just drill into it. So I had to create some brackets to basically mount the frame to the table. I ended up using aluminum U brackets and drilled holes that matched the holes in the table and mounted that to the table, and then screwed the side of the U brackets into the frame. I have rubber feet here on the side and the bottoms and the back, so I can lay it on its edge or on the back if I'm moving it around and not worry about scratching up the wood, and also make sure it doesn't slip when it's leaned up against the wall. The power switch. I certainly could have done that cheaper than I did. I first looked at just getting a paddle switch, an outlet, a box. By the time I added all that up, it was almost as much as the JESM switch. I ended up just going with the JESM switch, and it was a lot easier to mount here. So I was already over investing. Why stop now? I also got a replacement power cord for the DeWalt router so I could keep the original one, so in case I ever do pull it from the lift, I have a regular power cord. But I got an OEM replacement, and I cut it to size underneath the table so that I don't have a lot of extra cord underneath there. Sure, I could have wound it up, but I just like making it nice and tight. Well, that's about it. I hope you found this video useful in coming up with your own solution. As with most projects, I started this project in Visio so I could visually see how everything fit together. I'll provide a link for you down below with my drawing in case you find it useful. Please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.